Hello, welcome to CL's YT channel for CAT aspirants. Today, we're going to look at a passage and look at the best approach to solve an RC passage in CAT. So, as you know, CAT gives you an RC passage around 400 to 500 words, and you are given four questions based on the passage. And you have about the ideal time is there are 24 questions, out of which 16 are RC, and the rest are parajumble, summary, and odd one out parajumble, sentence placement. So, the best approach would be to try to complete as much as possible in 30 minutes, right? So that you have 10 minutes for the VA questions. How will I solve this passage in 10 minutes? That's what we're looking at. So, the first rule is to read the passage once, quickly but thoroughly. That means as you read, you have to simplify what you are reading. Now, because I am teaching, I cannot do it in one step. I'm going to do it for you in two steps. But what you have to do is, as you read, you need to quickly say, okay, so the first paragraph is saying this. Then move on to the second and say, so the second paragraph is saying this. Simplify what you have read. So by the time you finish reading the passage, you know the main point roughly. And then when there is a question, read the question and go back to the relevant part of the passage to cross check your answer if you are not sure. Let's start. This particular passage has 423 words, exactly about the cat passage style. Let's quickly read. Now, I would skim the passage first. That means I would read the first 5, 6 lines and the middle one line in the middle, and then at the end. All right. I'm going to read it aloud because I cannot, if I read silently, you're not going to understand what I'm doing. As spiraling costs of organizing multi sport events and the lack of appeal for a games with the colonial hangover have forced Glasgow 2026 to be a much scaled down affair, the immediate impact was felt by India. Glasgow Games cut down, impact felt in India. Uh, India's medal prospects in 2026 will be practically restricted to athletics and Paralympics. Shooting and wrestling have featured in a few elements. Top medal getters have etched their names among all time greats. While organizers' compulsion was understandable after Victoria's pullout, it would be prudent to include a couple of disciplines with a significant global appeal. It's about Commonwealth Games. Some events have been removed, and author says games with more appeal should have been kept. Now I'm going to read the passage. So I have an idea what the passage is about. Now I feel comfortable. I'm going to read the passage quickly and summarize it for you. As spiraling costs of organizing multi-sport events and the lack of appeal for a game with a colonial hangover have forced Glasgow 2026 to be a much scaled down affair, the immediate impact was felt by India, the most populous country in the Commonwealth family. Impact felt by India. It has consistently earned top 5 finishes in the new millennium, including best ever showing of second place 101 medals when Delhi played host in 2010. As organizers have decided to limit the games to 10 integrated disciplines, Indians are disappointed to note that some of the country's medal producing disciplines, wrestling, badminton, TT, hockey, squash, and cricket, have been dropped. Even after excluding shooting, which contributed the most to India's overall tally, the nation was fourth with 61 medals in Birmingham in 2022. 30 came from 6 disciplines. India's medal prospects in 2026 will be practically restricted to athletics, para athletics, weightlifting, para powerlifting, boxing, judo, bowls, and para bowls. Shooting and wrestling, which are featured in most editions, barring a few, have not only enriched the Indian medal kitty but produced glorious moments from the game. Top medal shooters Jaspal Rana, Samresh Jung, and triple gold winning wrestlers Sushil Kumar and Vinish Phogat have etched their names among the all time greats. Athletes such as Abhinav Bindra, Rajavardhan Singh Rathore, Yogeshwar Dutt have experienced Olympic fame after shining at the Commonwealth Games. First paragraph says that uh, Commonwealth Games Glasgow is going to be a toned down affair with lot of games which India is good at being out. In the past, India has done very well because of these games, but they have been removed from the Glasgow Games. Then he is giving details of Indian players who won medals like top shooters, Indian women's hockey team, gold medaling moment at Manchester 2002, and wrestler Geeta Phogat's historic gold in Delhi in 2010. In table tennis, India has been consistently placed among the top countries, and many may remember Manika Batra's superb showing of 4 medals in 2018. Hockey remains an all time favorite for India, while the country's silver medal in women's cricket debut in Birmingham is still fresh in fans' minds. So, all this is talking of India's past glory in the games, in the earlier games. Let's move here. While the So we anticipate and we don't read this in great detail. While organizers' compulsion was understandable after Victoria's pullout last year, they could have ensured a better future for the games, which began as the British Empire Games in 1930, and now it is close to the centenary mark. Sadly, the cost burden has impacted what appears to be a dying spectacle. The games have been cut down. Many of the events in which India was good have been removed. And the author then enumerates all of India's showing in the past games. Fantastic showing, medal winning prospects have come down. Author's last word is, while the organizers' compulsion was understandable after Victoria's pullout last year, they should have included a couple of disciplines which has more global appeal. That would have ensured that the games have a better future. Right now, the games appear to be a dying spectacle. All right, let's move to the first question. What assumption does the author make about the number of disciplines and the country's medal winning prospects? The author is saying that in the case of India, also, he says the number of disciplines have come down. There are a lot of disciplines that India was good at, so it's come down. So India's medal tally is likely to be affected. So, what is his assumption? His assumption is there is a connection. The higher the number of disciplines, the higher the country's chances of winning medals, right? So that is the assumption. Let's look at the options. Fewer number of disciplines would increase the chances of dominating countries. He has not mentioned dominating countries, so this is not correct. A greater number of disciplines would increase the chance for countries to secure medals. True, only in sports in which they have historically excelled. He has not said that. There is an inverse relationship between the number of disciplines and a country's potential? No. Now, the Glasgow Games have limited the number of games, and the author says limiting the number of discipline will impact the number of medals and therefore the overall performance and ranking in the games. Therefore, we don't have to go back to the passage. We know the main point. D is the correct answer. Question 2. If the organizers had included wrestling and shooting in the 2026 Olympic Games, what can be inferred about the implications for India? Let's go back to the passage. What has the author said? Author has said that many disciplines, including wrestling, badminton, hockey, and squash, have been dropped. All right. And then he says that shooting and wrestlings, right, these are the main two, have featured in most editions, barring a few. And they have enriched the Indian medal kitty and have produced glorious moments for the game. From this, what can we assume about, had these games not been taken out, what can be inferred? India would have won in these, at least won some medals. It has done so well, it would have won a lot of medals, maybe, right? That can be inferred. So, including wrestling and shooting would have reduced India's overall medal tally since these sports have become less competitive. No. Inclusion of wrestling and shooting would have had no significant impact. The author is not implying that. He is lamenting that these games, which India has excelled, and he has given you how many medals they have won. He has given a whole list of people who've not just won in Commonwealth Games but gone on to win in Olympic Games, shooting and wrestling. All these, India is losing the chance. So, with wrestling and shooting included, India would have increased its chances of winning a substantial number of medals, right? Therefore, C is the correct answer. It would have increased the cost of the games, true, but the implication is not for India, right? The question is asking what would have been the implication for India. Why did they cut down the games? Because they said the costs, logistics, and costs were too much. All right. Question 3. What does the author imply by the term colonial hangover? Whenever you get a quote about a term and the meaning of a term, the best approach is to go back to the passage where the term has been used, read it 2, 3 times so that you understand exactly what it means. Okay, where is colonial hangover? No. Where was the word colonial hangover used? We have to read the passage. We've read it really quickly. The most populous, including as the organizers of India are disappointed even after expelling its shooting. Defeated in most countries are not only in moments of the game. Where did we miss the colonial hangover? How come I can't find it? Spiraling costs. Ah, sorry guys. Here it is. See, this is what happens when you try to do it in 10 minutes. The games, the lack of appeal for a game with a colonial hangover, right? One is spiraling cost, second is lack of appeal, and what does he call? The game's lack of appeal for a game with a colonial hangover, right? So, what is the meaning of colonial hangover as mentioned in the passage? The Commonwealth Games originated in Britain, a former colonial power. They would have called it a colonial games instead of call it a hangover. The after effects of something, and generally the word has a negative connotation. They serve as a reminder of British historical dominance, true that it was we were its colony, but the colonial hangover has been connected to a lack of appeal. The games are tied to a colonial legacy that affects their acceptance today. The lack of appeal is because of the colonial hangover. Therefore, option C is the correct answer. All right, historical context continue to influence the games, true, but we are not sure if this is positive or negative. All right, question 4. Identify the sequence of events that led to the decision to limit the disciplines in the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Now, this is the tricky question of the set because we read it so fast. We have to see what was the reason, right? First thing he says that spiraling costs and the lack of appeal have forced Glasgow to be a much scaled down affair. All right, but this doesn't show the sequence. Then it tells all about India, India, India. What is the reason? Then again here, while the organizers' compulsion was understandable after Victoria's pullout last year, so Victoria pulled out, organizers felt compelled to do something. It would have been prudent to include a couple of disciplines with a significant global appeal, but the cost burden has impacted. So, Victoria pulling out as a host was the first step. Second, spiraling costs, logistics problem, uh, cost burden has made them cut down the number of events. Now let's look at the options. Options suddenly have lot more words, so we have to fit in what works. Public survey, nothing said they took a public survey. Waning interest is correct. Negative feedback, no. Financial reports, no. Logistical challenges, yes. Harsh decision, well, yes. Withdrawal of host, which is Victoria. Original host was Victoria, went to Glasgow. Logistical challenges, that is spiraling costs and decision to scale down events. All right, funding crisis, lack of cost is funding crisis. Poor planning, you can't say politics in sport. Therefore, the correct answer is option C. So we have done the questions in, well, I explained it, so it took 20 minutes. Otherwise, you can solve this passage in 10 minutes flat. All right. Any questions, any doubts, please ask.